Hey, welcome back. This is Chris Kopf, and this is Listing Presentation Secrets, video number 3. All right, so in this video, we're going to focus on the things that we will do to list, market, and sell the client's home. All right, we talked about the psychology of the listing presentation, how to win luxury listings. We want to be prepared. We talked about selling ourselves, our team, our brokerage. We talked about real estate 101, market factors, and educating our clients. So when we get to talking about pricing, we're going to be referring back to these things, but now we're going to be continuing a little bit on selling ourselves because we're talking about the systems, the things we're going to put in place to list, market, and sell their home. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into those slides. So here we are on a cover slide. Again, you just want to use a nice image from your market. You want to focus on saying again, hey, I am on your side, and here are the systems that I put in place, the things that I do to list, market, and help you sell your home. And I usually put an emphasis on helping them sell their home, right? And this is the reason that I hate for sale by owners, and I don't subscribe to the fact that that's a business that I want to be in. You might choose to be in it, but the very first thing that happens when you call that person is they want to know everything you're going to do to sell their home, right? It's all about you, and how they can, negotiate your commissions down, and, they want it sold tomorrow, and they want it sold at an unreasonable price, and all these things, right? So the difference here is that we're sitting down with a client and we're talking about the partnership we're going to have together to get their home sold. And all things being equal, we want to get it sold at the highest price and the shortest amount of time, right? So that's the goal. And when I this first slide, I talk about we are partners, right? And here's what we want to talk about: successfully marketing your property, all right? And I talk about my investment, my skin in the game. I'm going to spend a lot of time and effort, and there's a lot of things that I do that are part of my systems for every single home that I market because I found that they work. Okay, and so you're kind of setting the expectation that you don't want them to say, well, I don't want to pay your full commission because I don't want you to do these 3 things. You stop and say, I'm sorry, that's not negotiable. That's part of the systems. I do this for every single home, and I do that because it works, and I do that because it's part of the way that I'm able to help clients to get their home sold in the shortest amount of time for the highest possible price. So if you want to start like nickel and diming or taking things out of my system, then you got the wrong guy, because I'm not going to do that. I have a set strategy and systems that I implement, and those are the things that have been very successful for me and have gotten me to be one of the top agents in this market and in the country. And so I that's what I'm going to do. So let's go through those things so you understand what I'm going to do. And I'm doing a little role playing here. I'm not going to be confrontational, but if they bring it up later and say, those things, then this is where you want to come back to. Remember, we talked about all the things that I'm going to do. So we're going to talk about local print media, internet marketing, advertising, and exposure. My time and effort, quality marketing, my negotiation skills, my increase in perceived value. And I do say, that I've attended a certified negotiation expert training class. In fact, I took the same class over. It was a guy named Oliver Franscona that was an attorney in our market, very, very successful and a great instructor. I learned a ton from him. Unfortunately, I have to say he died in a plane crash. So it's sad. But anyway, I was so thankful that I got the opportunity to attend a lot of his classes, and the CNE certification was something I really have enjoyed. So even with all of this, statistics show that, I think I can do a little better than the average bear, but maybe not, above 5%. I'm going to do my best, and we'll see where we land. But I just want you to know that that for all the marketing and the things that I am doing to get exposure, I probably will be helping to accelerate that time frame and to put your home in a good light and to help to represent it as best as possible. But the market is still going to decide. Remember, we talked before about some of those market factors. That's still at play big time here, okay? So marketing doesn't sell your home. It only attracts prospective buyers and buyers agents, okay? So here's an interesting statistic, and I'm just going to point this out, that 90% of properties don't sell because the price is unrealistic given the market. And 90% of sellers whose property don't sell blame the real estate agent. And you can have fun with this stuff, right? You don't have to, it's not like super serious, like you're, putting them in a pretzel hold or something. You're just kind of saying, look, these are the statistics that the National Association, my governing body, has sent out to me. And so I saw that. I was like, holy cow, that's interesting. And then I just have to tell you that I've had some times where I've agreed to a super high price that I knew was not the right price because I wanted the listing, and I don't do that anymore. I think we need to come up with a price that's fair to the market. We'll get to that. But I just want you to know that and I say these words. I just want you to know that, if buyers have to stretch a little bit, that's okay. But if they have to jump, they're not going to jump to buy your house unless your home is unbelievable, and some crazy stuff going on out there. We find, we hit the lottery or the jackpot, and there's that one buyer, which is so super unlikely, not going to happen. Okay. But what I will tell you is that I'm going to do everything I can to sell your home at the highest possible price, and all things being equal, in the shortest amount of time, right? You've heard me say that now like 5 times. So you might want to add something like that in your repertoire. The other thing I tell people, and you can write this down, is, look, I'm not going to be cavalier with your money. And I use those exact words. And the reason I say that is because I have my set systems, and I'm very successful in my market. And boy, would I love to have your home sell tomorrow and you be super happy about it. And we get to the closing table and you get paid and I get paid and everything is great, right? But that's not the motivation. Remember, I told you before, the motivation for me is that you're super happy, all right? And if we come to a price point, we look at the market pricing, and you say, well, gosh, I had my heart set on a price much higher than that. I think maybe there might be some wiggle room in there, and you can come down a little bit, and I can agree that we can, come up above market a little bit, and then we can figure out if that works after. We might price it above market a little bit. If we have an ascending market, that kind of makes sense too, that, buyers are coming your way. But the reality is, I don't want to be cavalier with your money. And if you are set on that, let's try it. But maybe let's revisit that in 45 days or 90 days or whatever that time frame is. Is that fair? If we get feedback from the broker open house and the showings that your price is way too high, and the market is telling us that, then we should probably have a conversation about adjusting that price down. We can always make it lower, right? Does that make sense? And so you're asking those checking questions with the client, okay? So, and then I have this on the slide. If your price is unrealistic, and I kind of said this before, I may choose to not list your property unless we can agree on some adjustment price schedule. So even if it's too high, I might not agree, because I don't want to, as soon as we list your home, I start spending money, right? And I remember I had a client one time, I literally said, they said, well, what do we need to do to sell our house? Well, you need to reduce the price. Well, we don't want to do that. What else can we do? I'm like, okay, well, for one, you could paint that picket fence out there that's gray instead of white. And I got a bid, and this was like a home listed at about $1.4 million, $1.5 million, and the bid was like $2,000 to paint the picket fence. It was a pretty big yard, and they didn't want to do it. And it's like, are you kidding me? You don't want to spend $2,000, but you're putting me in a pretzel hold because you want me to spend more money on marketing, yet you, the seller, aren't going to spend a dime. Okay, so the mentality of the general public sometimes can drive us crazy, right? But that's why it's good to have some of these conversations up front, so you understand who you're dealing with and who you don't want to deal with. Because you might know right now, you know what, I really don't want to take this listing. These people are going to be a total pain. They're not reasonable. They're not. They don't get it. They're not, whatever the thing is, right? But you might want to cut bait right now. All right. So determining the price of your home continued, right? So my role, and I tell this to people, and I tell it to you, that you don't want to be the person that comes up with their price. Okay, you don't want to be the person that then they're pointing the finger at you. Well, you said this, right? You want to say, I want to help you, Mr. and Mr. Seller, to provide you with the information so you can make an informed decision. I want to provide you with honest and candid input, and I'm going to tell you candidly what I think. And it's not because I don't like you, or I don't like your home, or I don't like something about your home. I'm just telling you, given my experience and my expertise, I'm going to tell you, is that okay? Or do you want me to, blow smoke up your rear end? What would you rather have me do? Try to be, candid with you, or just tell you what you want to hear and sugarcoat it, right? So I'm going to help you to make decisions. So given the market, what do you think someone would pay for your home today? And so this is where we look at this property valuation analysis. If you went through this training, you learned how to create this report. And, when you look at this report, that's a really good thing to say. It's like, all right, well, given what the average and the median price points are, and given your square footage, and given, these are similar homes, it looks like the market is saying your home is worth $1.4 million. Based on that, what do you think it says? Or just don't even fill in the blank $1.4 million and just say, what do you think it says? Okay. And you can ask them, here's my hopeful outcome today, that we're either going to come to agreement to list your home today with me, or maybe you decided that, the market just isn't where you hoped it would be, and you're going to defer and not list your home for a while. And I hope that you don't connect the dots between the market is saying that your home isn't priced where you want it to be, and shooting me the messenger, because I am just doing my best to provide you with candid information so you can make an informed decision. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm doing? Do you understand? All right, so I'm saying those checking questions to you and to the client at the same time, right? So that's the way you want to present this, right? And I down in the notes I talk about that. You want to ask these checking questions, right? So let's continue on. So now the local marketing plan. Let me just talk about the things that I am going to be doing in the market to capture the attention of affluent winter and summer visitors, target second homeowners that are also potential buyers, because some people might be upgrading to your home, or they may have friends that want to be in the market, and they will refer them. We're going to introduce your home to the realtor community. So we're going to do everything we can do to get exposure. Okay, so here's my plan. I have a local advertising schedule. I will talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of other things, but first thing first, here's the periodicals that are glossy periodicals that I advertise in, and here's the ad placement, the things that I do, and I still do print media in my market. It might not be as effective as I want. I don't like that we can't measure it, but for sellers, it does show them that you're marketing their home, and there's some value in spending those dollars, and there are potential opportunities to attract buyers through listing ads and branding ads. So I do some of that in my local market, and I would encourage you as well to become visible in your local market so people recognize your face and your brand and those kinds of things. And then I talk about other marketing. I will do open houses, broker open houses, targeted affluent public. We might try and get a Tour de Forks event here at your home, a musical festival soiree. I'll do direct mail, a just listed postcard, and some direct mail. I do email market reports and newsletters, and I feature all my listings in there. and I do sponsorship marketing. So sometimes that might include listings that I have, but all these things that I do attract buyers, and that's one of the ways that I'm able to funnel potential buyers to your home, because I know it best, and I can qualify those buyers that might be a good fit. And so that's some of the local marketing that I do. And here's some examples, and I show like the ad copy that I do, a full page color ad for the newspaper, and this is a periodical that's a glossy periodical. That's the Elk Mountain Real Estate Review, and I've had some of my clients on the cover of this, and that helped to sell their home. And I can get placements there. There's other local glossy magazines that I advertise in, regional magazines and national magazines. I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. And so then I've written some articles as well. I've been a published author. I've been interviewed frequently for my opinion about certain market trends, and I've written a number of articles that have been published in periodicals, and it's just another thing that makes me an expert in my market as a real estate agent. And that's something I'm still selling, right? I'm still, and if I see them shaking their heads, then I'm like, okay, good, we got that. All right, so keep going. All right, so here's another thing that I do. It used to be that marketing and doing brochures was very valuable, but really the brochure isn't that valuable anymore. The brochures that I get that are branded like this, if I put them in your home, I'll just tell you that another real estate agent will come in and they'll turn it over, or they won't pick one up and give it to their client because it's got my branding information on it. So sometimes I might print a brochure and keep it in your home that's informative, but it doesn't have my brand. It just has my Coldwell Banker brand, and that's it. But I use these brochures in a brochure box system, and that's what I tell the client. And then we're gonna I talk through the brochure box system with them. And if you've taken my Attract Client Secrets Masterclass, I talk about the brochure box system that I have and how this has helped me to generate incremental over $100,000 by leveraging the brochure box system. So it's something that I do, and in my market I can only do in the summer, not in the winter, but I'm a big advocate of that. Okay, so then we're going to talk about direct mail. I don't do a ton of this anymore, but I still do some market reports. I've done some just sold, just listed, direct mail pieces, and some different things that can be effective if you do it and it's effective for you. I would continue. I think it's really important when you're starting out, and especially if you're trying to crack into a new area, that you do it on a consistent basis. It can be a good way to convert people from a physical address, mailing address that you might get from the county assessor site, and convert those people to online leads, to send them to your website to get the full market report. So if you did a market report newsletter like this, and you had the URL for your market report in there, and they went there, they had to opt in, you'd get their email address and maybe their contact info. That's a good use of direct mail. And then we talk about local marketing, and I'm affiliated with a lot of local nonprofits because there's a lot of affluent clients that are in those nonprofits, and I support those because I know a lot of sellers and a lot of buyers, especially sellers, because they're in the community. They respect that I volunteer my time, I donate money, and I do other things that I teach in my Attract Client Secrets Masterclass that helps me to affiliate myself with those organizations and with the people in those organizations, okay? So I promote that. Sometimes, that's a big thing, and people will tell me right here, you know what, one of the reasons we selected you was because we really appreciate the way you support the arts in the community, or that you're, visible and giving back in the community. And guess what? Well, tons of other real estate agents don't do that. So if you want to differentiate yourself, join one of these organizations, volunteer, be on the, registration committee for the gala event, or somewhere in that organization. Figure out how you can get involved in your community, and it will be something that will be very rewarding and good for your business. Okay. So then I talk about my digital footprint, and I just have some stats here. And we're going to talk more in detail about this, but just that you want to communicate to your client that you're plugged into the internet and the digital world, and that's really important because from statistics from the National Association of Realtors that a ton of buyers, almost 80% of buyers, are going to look online prior to showing up in your market. And if you have a good digital presence and your client's listing is syndicated throughout the internet and on your local brokerage site, on your website, and it's well represented with professional photography and video photography and 3D virtual tours and drone photography, all those things are eye candy to a buyer. And so I tell sellers, remember what talked about professional photography and all those things? Well, these are the places where it's really going to pay us back in spades when we are able to, get that information out on the internet. And let's talk about some of those platforms. So I talk about my marketing, my newsletter, my market report, and how I incorporate all that stuff into my website and vice versa. So I do blogs. And part of the blogs go onto my website and they go into my newsletter. And so all of this is related, and it's part of how I differentiate myself in my market. I post a lot of stuff on social media, and I leverage social media advertising, so Google AdWords and Facebook advertising. And I spend a lot of money in things, Mr. Seller and prospect, that you don't see, that are behind the scenes, that are internet marketing things that will help attract buyers to come to be interested in your property. I cast a wide net. There's no silver bullet in real estate marketing, and I'm going to cast a wide net on your behalf. Okay? The Google search engine is very important, and I'll use Google AdWords, which shows up here, and then I also, native SEO search shows up down below the fold here. And generally, for a lot of the keywords, I'm on the first page, and I'm very grateful about that. I actually have a SEO guy that manages, and I pay on a monthly basis quite a bit of money to have him manage my SEO presence, and it's a very complex thing, but it's one of the reasons I'm ranked high and people find me on the internet. So YouTube is another thing that it's a number 2 search engine on the internet. I literally have over 100 videos. Those are video tours, lifestyle videos, lots of different things. I have my own YouTube channel, and so this is something that's very helpful, especially when I get the video tour done for your home. Okay, so that's what I talk about on this slide. And now I'm talking about things on my website, and you can go to my listings and see that. You can see blog posts. All these listings are syndicated from our MLS to these different sites, and so I have a lot of content, and then a lot of this content ends up in my social media platforms, and I use Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. I used to use Google Plus. I don't do that anymore. And then also starting to use a little bit more Instagram. But YouTube is a big thing. I talked about that before. And 3D walkthrough tours. This is a very cool thing. I've done quite a number of these. It's kind of weird because the feedback for my demographic, a lot of my buyers have said they didn't know how to make it work. They couldn't figure it out, right? And you got to use the arrow keys and your mouse, and you can virtually walk through the home like a video game. Well, the millennials can do this simple, but people that are 45, 55, 65, and if it's a seller, they may be 70 or older, they can't use it, and so it doesn't even show up on their radar. And so you can do this. I think it's very impressive and doesn't cost a ton of money, and I do it frequently, but I don't always do it now. I think the video tour, someone can watch a video for 3 minutes instead of having to drive this thing themselves, but I still am an advocate because it's such a cool tool. Marketing events. I do additional marketing events in Dallas. It's one of the feeder markets. I came from Dallas. I was a second homeowner from Dallas. And so there's a lot of folks that I know that are in Dallas, and I usually can get 75 to 90 people to an event, and I bring a speaker in from my market. And I do this every year in the off season, and it's been something that's been very, very useful and valuable for me. This year will be the 10th annual year that I'll have done that event, and I encourage you to do that too. So this is the very last slide in the listing presentation. Okay, we've come to the very end. Okay, so let me just talk briefly about this slide, because I really say up here, I appreciate the opportunity to be your realtor, and to me, you're a very big fish. Right? And that's it. I mean, it's funny. I laugh and I chuckle, and they say, man, that is a huge fish. Where'd you catch that fish? And so it's, I tell a fish story, and I kind of use a metaphor, and I say, you know what? I appreciate that you're a fisherman, or you appreciate that fish. And it's not easy to catch that's like a 27-inch rainbow trout, and that's not an easy fish to catch or land. And first you got to select the right fly, and you have to have the right presentation, and you have to know how to handle the fish, and you got to be able to get it to the net. And I kind of think of that as the same thing that I'm, standing here before you asking to earn your business as your listing agent, that I'm going to help you to get to the closing table, just like I got that large fish in the net. And I hope you understand, and you have seen the level of detail that I go through, the way I differentiate myself in the market, the things that I do to market your home, to list, market, and help you sell your home. The attention to detail that, I understand the market forces and the market factors, and the things, that we need to get on the same side of the table and understand the right price point for your home. So given the time frame you just told me, that, you're going to be happy to know that it can get sold in that amount of time. But we got to work together to prepare your home to get it on the market and do all these things, right? And so I just, I guess at this point in the presentation, I'll look at the client and I'll say, what are your thoughts? Do you feel like you can trust me to be your real estate agent? Do you feel good about, me being your real estate agent? And then I pause, right? So I think I put some checking questions in here. I say, based on my presentation, we've discussed so far, are you comfortable with me representing you as your real estate agent to list, market, and sell your home? Right? It's a checking question. It's also a closing question. You want to gain their approval. At this point, you probably have if they're standing there, sitting there, fidgeting, or they're stone faced, or they have given you no positive feedback, you probably know that you're not doing so good. If they've been shaking their head the whole time, body language is good. They're opening up, that's good. If they're sitting there with closed arms and they have a scowl on their face, probably not so good, right? But you still want to ask the checking question. And you might want to say, okay, well, based on, what we've talked about so far, what are your thoughts? Tell me, give me some feedback. What do you think? Right? And that's valuable feedback. They may say, well, I have no idea where you're coming from, but this is the worst listing presentation we ever had. Oh man, I'm really sorry to hear that. Tell me what you didn't like about it, or what could I do better, or what. This is an opportunity as well to get feedback, but your goal is to get the business, right? So you want to ask that question. Based on what we've talked about tonight, do you feel like I've earned the right to ask you the question? Can I even ask you? Is it okay if I ask you, can I be your real estate agent? Would you select me to be your agent? Is there anything I didn't, questions you still have, right? And so those kind of things. And that's where I typically ask it. And here's an important point, all right? Before we close, I'm going to tell you this is very important. What you want to do is you want to gain their approval before you start going through the price point. You don't want them to discount you as their agent because they don't like the price that you came up with them. Okay? Before they say, well, we want to talk about the price. You want to say, okay, I want to too. But before we do that, assuming we can come to agreement on a price that works for you, are you comfortable with me being your real estate agent, representing you as your agent to sell your home? Right? And then shut up and watch. See if they start fidgeting, and then also look at if you're in front of a couple, if the wife looks at the husband or the husband looks at the wife, then you know who's the decision maker, right? It's very important. The body language, the dynamics of what's going on between that couple, right? You might ask some checking questions. Well, you guys said you wanted to sell it in 3 months. Is that still, your plan? And if she looks at him, then he's the decision maker. If he looks at her, then she's the decision maker. It's also important to ask them, well, when you sell the home, what's your next step? What's the next chapter in your life? What are you gonna do if you're selling your home here? And they may say, well, we're gonna buy a bigger one. Oh crap! Well, that's awesome. Have you started looking? I'd love to work with you on, help you, solve that side of the puzzle. So they may say, well, we're going to move to some other market. Well, have you identified that market? Have you a real estate agent in that market? You might find you could get a referral in that situation. It's good to ask that question because that's a motivating determination with their timeline, right? Well, okay, so you're going to move from here to there. If you're selling this home, what's your time frame for doing that, or why do you want to do that? So there could be some important information that you could gather. But going back to that question again, you want to ask them the question: are they comfortable with you being the real estate agent? Can we agree that I have earned your business, or no? And they may say straight out, well, we're going to talk with Joe Smith tomorrow, another agent, or no, we're going to interview 3 other agents. Or they may say, gosh, you didn't really have to go through all that because we already selected you before you walked through the door. You didn't ask that question up front, before you even sit down, right? We talked about that in the intro. So those are the things you want to think about. That's the last slide, and I hope this has been very helpful and informative. You can always go back through this and make sure you check out these notes, and I know that you're going to crush it using this listing presentation once you customize it with your images and all the information for your story and who you are in your market.